There's a car behind us. They're trying to ram us off the road, please. They're going to kill me. I'm going to die. These were the final desperate words of 21-year-old Saqib Hussein, gasped into his phone during a frantic 999 call on a cold February night. Seconds later, his car was torn apart by a deadly crash and engulfed in flames. His charred body was barely recognizable. Alongside him, another young man, Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin, burned alive in the passenger seat. But this wasn't a random accident. It wasn't a gangland chase. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't road rage. The person he feared, the person hunting him, a 23-year-old TikTok influencer known for her fashion hauls, dance videos, and glamorous selfies. Her name, Mahek Bukhari, and her accomplice, her own mother. This is the story of how social media stardom twisted into a deadly obsession, how a secret affair, a threat of blackmail, and a mother-daughter pact led to a chilling double murder, and how 2 lives were extinguished to protect an image. At first glance, Mahek Bukhari was everything a young influencer aspired to be. She was bold, beautiful, confident. Her videos were polished, full of style, humor, and trend-savvy edits. Her following grew fast. Over 130,000 fans on TikTok, hundreds of thousands of views on each clip. She was fast becoming a recognizable face in the UK's fashion and beauty influencer scene. But Mahek wasn't alone in the spotlight. Her co-star, her mother, Anshreen Bukhari. Unlike most influencer parents who shy away from the camera, Anshreen was front and center. She appeared in nearly all of Mahek's content. They were inseparable, dancing at clubs, filming pranks, matching outfits, sipping cocktails. Their bond was aspirational. Followers admired how close they were. They weren't just a mother and daughter. They were friends, roommates, party partners, business collaborators. For many, they symbolized the ultimate modern mother-daughter relationship. Glam, progressive, open. But there was a problem with perfect images. They often hide the ugliest truths. Behind the filtered perfection was a tangled mess of secrets, shame, and fear. The truth? Anshreen Bukhari, 46 years old, was living a double life. While she appeared to be a supportive mother and influencer partner by day, by night, she was involved in a secret affair with a man 25 years younger, barely older than her daughter. And not just any man, one who would eventually die by fire. To understand just how far this illusion went, you need to know where Mahek came from. She wasn't born into wealth or celebrity. Her family, while stable, lived a relatively normal life in the Midlands. Her parents were traditional, Muslim, and kept to their own circle. For much of her childhood, her mother Anshreen played the typical housewife role, reserved, quiet, unseen. But everything changed when Mahek became a rising star. Social media was a portal, an escape from the mundane, a gateway to status and validation. Anshreen found herself swept into that world too. Suddenly, she wasn't just a mother, she was Mummy B on TikTok, and she loved it. It was exciting, like 2 different lives. Being on camera, going out, meeting people, it made me feel alive again. But with that excitement came danger, not just in the public eye, but behind the scenes. Anshreen was becoming addicted to attention, not just from fans, but from men. And one man in particular was about to become her downfall. While Mahek was dancing on screen, her mother was tangled in a toxic love story. And when that story began to leak into the public sphere, threatening everything they'd built, it wasn't just embarrassment they feared, it was total collapse. It wasn't just about Saqib, it was about what people would say. About our family, about my daughter, we had to do something. Behind every curated social media clip, behind every filter, every viral video, was a woman cornered by consequences, and a daughter willing to do the unthinkable to protect her brand. Let's talk about Mahek again. By 2022, she had dropped out of Manchester Metropolitan University, abandoning her fashion studies. She didn't need a degree, her fame was her future. Sponsorships, brand deals, club invites. Her phone was always in her hand, her camera always on. She lived life through the lens, constantly recording, curating, editing. Her brand was built on her mother being her best friend. That family image was everything. Followers idolized them. They were the Brown Kardashians of Leicester, young, rebellious, confident. A scandal involving her mother and a much younger man would tear that illusion apart. And worse, the man, Saqib Hussein, wasn't just threatening exposure, he had proof. The very existence of that content was a loaded gun pointed at their empire. When that gun was cocked, Mahek didn't run, she didn't beg, she planned. And she plotted with the same strategic energy she used to build her online persona. Because if there's one thing social media teaches, it's this: perception is power, and reputation is everything. Even if it means destroying a life or two to protect it. But this wasn't just a case of dirty secrets. This was about a choice, a chilling decision, to protect a lie with blood. In 2019, Saqib Hussein was just 18 years old, fresh-faced, full of emotion, still figuring out who he was. He had dreams, ambitions, and a deep longing for connection. That's when he met Ansreen Bukhari. She was more than twice his age, married, a mother, and an emerging TikTok personality alongside her daughter. On paper, their paths should never have crossed. But social media knows no boundaries, and neither does loneliness. Their relationship began online, casual messages, late-night chats, selfies sent under the cover of darkness. But soon messages turned into meetings, restaurants, hotel rooms, shisha bars lit by neon. A romance emerged, not in the light of day, but always in shadows. To Saqib, it was thrilling, intoxicating. He told friends he was in love, that this older woman, elegant, confident, experienced, had changed him, made him feel seen. But to Ansreen, it was a ticking time bomb. The affair continued for 3 years. Saqib lavished her with gifts, clothes, jewelry, dinners. He spent thousands, often dipping into borrowed money, and he kept everything, receipts, photos, voice notes, as if documenting their love was his only way to prove it was real. But it was never a love story with a happy ending. In early 2022, Ansreen tried to break it off. She was scared, the guilt was overwhelming. She was terrified of what it might do to her husband, to her son, to Mahek. And that's when Saqib changed. "You don't get to walk away. I'll show your husband everything. Everyone will know what you are. You owe me. Pay me back. I'll ruin your daughter's career." The messages turned threatening, then obsessive, then desperate. Saqib's tone veered wildly, from pleas for love to cold blackmail. He claimed she owed him £3,000, that he had paid for her clothes, hotel stays, meals, that she used him, and if she didn't repay him and stay with him, he would go public with everything. To some, that might sound like a bluff. To Ansreen, it was a death sentence. In her conservative community, the shame alone could destroy her family, and the damage to her daughter's image, Mahek, the face of a modern Muslim woman online, would be catastrophic. Ansreen was trapped, but instead of going to the police, she went to Mahek. Ansreen confessed everything, the affair, the photos, the threats, and Mahek, rather than recoil or break down, began planning. She didn't hesitate, she didn't question. In that moment, she didn't see a mother who had betrayed her father. She saw a threat to her empire. Mahek lived in a world where perception was everything. Reputation meant brand deals, follower counts, sponsorships. Her mother's affair wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a PR disaster waiting to happen. To her, this wasn't about right and wrong, it was about control. "I'll get him jumped by guys and he won't know what day it is." A message Mahek sent her mother. Cold, calculated, as if arranging a coffee date, not a crime. Mahek knew how to orchestrate content. She edited hours of footage into slick 30-second reels. Planning came naturally. Organizing came easily, and this was just another production. Her idea? Arrange a meetup under the guise of peace. Offer the £3,000, get Saqib to delete the content, shut him down, make him disappear, quietly, cleanly. But Mahek wasn't going alone. She enlisted a friend, Rekan Karwan. He brought backup, Rais, Jamal, and others, a crew. And what began as a fix became a full-blown operation. Saqib, despite his threats, had no idea what was coming. He was cautious, yes. He sensed something might be off. Friends warned him it could be a setup. But Saqib was too emotionally invested. He believed, maybe foolishly, that if he just met her, if he saw her face, he could make it right again. He told a friend, "She's different. She wouldn't hurt me." So he agreed to the meet. And because he didn't drive, he asked his friend Hashim to take him. Hashim said yes without question. That decision would cost him his life. 2 cars, a cold February night, a parking lot in Leicester. Mahek and her mother sat waiting in an Audi TT. The others, masked, ready, waited in a Seat Leon nearby. When Saqib and Hashim arrived in a silver Skoda Fabia, they had no idea they had just walked into a trap. They never even got out of the car. Saqib saw the men, saw the masks, saw the setup. He yelled at Hashim to drive. They peeled out of the lot, and the chase began. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a scare tactic. It was a hunt. And what Saqib didn't know, couldn't have imagined, was that his final words, his final screams, were already being recorded. The trap was set. It was February 11, 2022, just past 1 a.m. Saqib Hussein thought he was coming to settle things. He believed this meeting was his last shot at resolution. The 3,000 pounds he claimed was owed to him, the closure he hoped for, the power he thought he held, he believed it was all within reach. But in reality, he was walking straight into an ambush. Mahek Bukhari had orchestrated everything. The location, a Tesco car park, familiar enough not to raise alarms. The bait, repayment of the money Saqib had demanded. The plan, intimidate him, retrieve his phone, and delete every last piece of evidence. Photos, videos, messages. Wipe the slate clean. Mahek and her mother arrived in an Audi TT. Rikan Karwan and Rais Jamal followed closely in a Seat Leon. The crew came prepared, not with cash or apologies, but with gloves, masks, and backup. At least 2 of the men wore balaclavas. One report noted that they brought weapons, though the prosecution would later argue that their deadliest weapon wasn't a knife or a gun, it was their car. Saqib was anxious, no doubt. He had confided in friends earlier that day that he feared something wasn't right. But he also told them he was handling it, that Mahek would never let it go too far. What he didn't realize was that this wasn't Mahek anymore. This wasn't the girl who posted makeup tutorials. This wasn't the daughter who danced beside her mother online. This was someone else entirely. Someone who had decided the only way out was silence. When Saqib and Hashim pulled into the Tesco lot, it didn't take long for the alarm bells to ring. The moment they spotted the other vehicle, masks, men, no sign of a payout, they knew. It was a setup. Hashim hit the gas. And what happened next wasn't part of the original plan. The plan, Mahek would later claim, was to scare Saqib, to retrieve the phone, nothing more. But when the Skoda peeled out, when Saqib fled, something snapped. This wasn't going to be a quick confrontation anymore. This was now a chase. The Audi TT and the Seat Leon both gave chase. Down the A46 dual carriageway they accelerated, pushing speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. It was just after 1:30 a.m. There were no streetlights in some stretches, just black asphalt, rushing wind, and fear. From the passenger seat, Saqib dialed 999. "Saqib, there's a car behind. They're trying to ram us off the road. Please, please, I'm going to die." "Operator, stay on the line. Where are you now?" "Saqib, I don't know. Please, please help me." Then, silence. Rais Jamal, driving the Seat Leon, rammed the Skoda from behind. The force was catastrophic. The Skoda veered off the road, struck the central reservation, and slammed into a tree. It split in 2. Then it ignited. Within seconds, the entire car was consumed by fire. The heat was so intense that emergency responders would later describe the wreckage as unrecognizable. Both Saqib Hussein and Hashim Ijazuddin were killed instantly, their bodies charred beyond identification. And Mahek? She didn't stop. Neither did her mother. Neither did the others. The group made a full loop around the crash site just to make sure. They saw the fire, saw the smoke, saw the end result of their plan, and then they fled. No calls to 999, no attempt to help, just silence. In that moment, Mahek believed she had succeeded. The secret, gone. The blackmailer, dead. The scandal, silenced. She didn't know that the truth, his voice, his final words, had already been recorded and would come back to haunt her. What started as a confrontation had become a killing. And what Mahek didn't understand, could never have understood, was that the digital world she loved so much that gave her power would also be her undoing. CCTV, phone data, dash cams, GPS, the 999 call, every detail was captured, every step retraced. The digital trail would expose her for who she really was. Not a fashion influencer, not a victim, not a daughter defending her mother, but a mastermind in a premeditated, cold-blooded trap. February 11, 2022, 1:32 a.m. The night was cold, silent. The A46, a dual carriageway running through Leicestershire, was nearly empty. Just 3 cars dominated the road, 1 fleeing, 2 chasing. Inside the silver Skoda Fabia, panic was mounting. In the passenger seat, Saqib Hussein gripped his phone. His voice trembled as he dialed 999. Operator, emergency, which service? Saqib, police, please. I'm in danger. Operator, tell me what's happening. Saqib, I'm in a car. There's a car behind us. They're trying to ram us off the road. I swear, they're trying to kill us. I'm going to die. Please help. That was the last anyone heard from Saqib. He wasn't alone. Driving the Skoda was his friend, Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin. Hashim was 21, kind-hearted, quiet, not involved in the blackmail, not a part of the affair, just a friend doing a favor, helping Saqib get to a meeting he thought would end a nightmare. He didn't know it would be his last drive. Behind them were 2 cars, an Audi TT, driven by influencer Mahek Bukhari and her mother Ansreen, and a Seat Leon, with Rais Jamal at the wheel, flanked by Rekan Karwan and other accomplices. These weren't ordinary drivers. They weren't trying to catch up, they were hunting. Witnesses later said they saw the cars weaving between lanes, high beams flashing, engines roaring. The Skoda tried to get away, swerving, braking, accelerating, but the Seat Leon closed the distance. At over 100 miles per hour, it slammed into the rear of the Skoda. Once, twice, and then one final strike. The Skoda hit the central reservation, then bounced sideways and collided head-on with a tree. The sheer force split the car almost in 2. The fuel tank ruptured. Within seconds, fire engulfed the cabin. Emergency services would later say the explosion was visible from a mile away. No one inside had a chance. Saqib and Hashim died before help could even be called. Their bodies were burned beyond recognition. Leicestershire police arrived to a horror scene. Charred metal, melted tires, shards of plastic embedded in bark, the smell of gasoline still lingered in the air. It wasn't just a crash, it was a crime scene, but the killers, they were already long gone. Mahek Bukhari didn't stop to check, didn't call an ambulance, didn't scream or cry. She and her mother circled back, driving slowly past the wreck, not to help, but to watch. Then they drove home, thinking it was over, that the fire had burned away the evidence, that the secret had died with Saqib. They were wrong. In the hours following the crash, Mahek returned to social media. She deleted messages, cleared logs, blocked Saqib's number. It was damage control, digital hygiene. To her, this was the next stage of the brand reset. But behind the scenes, investigators were already assembling a case, and Mahek had left a trail longer than any of her TikTok videos. Detectives quickly realized the crash wasn't random. From the 999 call alone, suspicions were raised. The operator heard the fear in Saqib's voice, the desperate tone, the implication that this was no accident. Then came CCTV from Tesco. It showed the cars arriving together, then fleeing. ANPR, automatic number plate recognition, tracked all vehicles along the A46. GPS logs from the suspects' phones told the same story. Even more damning, damage on the Seat Leon matched the Skoda's rear bumper indentations. This wasn't an impulsive act, it was deliberate, premeditated, calculated. They hunted their victims, they caused the crash, and they left 2 men to burn alive. But the most haunting evidence was Saqib himself. His 999 call, played in full during the trial, was his final testimony. The recording captured his fear, his awareness of death, his belief that someone, anyone, could save him. No one did. When the call was played in court, Mehek's bravado cracked for the first time. Up until that point, she had tried to control the narrative. She blamed others, lied about her location, cried only when cameras were on. But when the courtroom filled with Saqib's screams, even she couldn't hold the mask. It was real, it was brutal, and it was recorded. 2 lives, 2 families destroyed, not because of a feud, not because of drugs, not because of hate, but because of reputation, because a mother and daughter believed their image was worth more than 2 human beings. It didn't take long. By morning, February 11, 2022, just hours after the fatal crash, police were already on their way to the Bukhari home. Leicestershire officers had been working through the night. That 999 call, it wasn't just disturbing, it was an immediate red flag. The voice, the panic, the clear accusation. Someone was trying to kill him, and they did. She greets them with the poise of someone used to performing. Not with fear, not with grief, but with indifference. We were in Nottingham last night, got a bit lost, turned around, came home. That's it. A lie. A quick one, delivered without hesitation, without stutter. Anne Shreen stood beside her daughter, silent, expressionless. She didn't contradict the story. She didn't cry. She just let the lie settle into the room. But it wouldn't last long. The investigation moved fast. Police pulled CCTV from the Tesco car park. Footage confirmed the Skoda's arrival and departure, closely followed by the Audi TT and the Seat Leon. ANPR data from traffic cams confirmed all 3 cars traveled the A46 within seconds of one another. GPS logs from mobile phones traced Mehek and her crew to every stop, every turn, every pause. And then there was the forensic evidence. The Seat Leon showed damage, scratches, dents, fibers that matched the Skoda's crushed rear. The science didn't lie. Mehek tried to. At first, she denied being anywhere near the crash site. Then, when presented with the data, she pivoted. It was just a scare tactic, she claimed. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, but the evidence painted a different story. The call destroyed every defense. The court heard Saqib's last moments. He named them. He begged for help. He screamed for his life. And Mehek, once defiant, crumbled. In a rare moment, she admitted to lying. Not because of guilt, but because, as she told police, I panicked. I knew how it would look. The trial was a media sensation. Held at Leicester Crown Court, it lasted over 3 months. The prosecution was ruthless. They laid it all out. The planning, the bait, the ambush, the chase, the fire, every message, every video, every mile of road. This was not a prank gone wrong. This was a deliberate act, a planned execution, driven by a desperate desire to protect a reputation built on lies. The defense tried to argue it was a confrontation gone too far, that Mehek hadn't wanted anyone dead, that the crash was an accident. But the jury didn't buy it. The texts, the coordination, the masks, the chase, everything screamed intent, especially the fact that no one called for help after the crash. Mehek wasn't just part of the group, she was the glue, the puppet master, the digital director who moved the pieces into place, expecting to delete the consequences as easily as she deleted a TikTok video. But this time, the edit wasn't hers to make. Over the course of the trial, more chilling details emerged. Mehek had sent photos of Saqib to her accomplices days before the meeting. Group chats revealed conversations about sorting him out, and Shreen's silence, her complicity, was noted again and again. She wasn't an unwilling mother dragged into her daughter's scheme, she was a partner. A mother who, faced with scandal, didn't beg for forgiveness, she signed off on murder. Public outrage was swift. Social media, once Mehek's kingdom, turned on her. TikTok deleted her account, Instagram wiped her profile. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. The same platform that built her now tore her down. On the final day of the trial, the prosecution replayed the 999 call one last time. Silence fell over the room. Even the judge appeared shaken. It wasn't just evidence, it was a voice from the grave. Saqib had testified in death, and no one could ignore it. Then came the verdicts. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Mahek Bukhari found guilty of double murder. Her mother and Sreen, guilty. Rikan Karwan, Rais Jamal, others, all guilty. The courtroom erupted in emotion. Some cried, some shouted, some simply sat in stunned silence. For the families of Saqib and Hashim, it was justice, but not peace, because nothing could bring the boys back. He begged for help. No one came. He didn't deserve this. Mahek was taken away in handcuffs. No phone, no filters, no followers. Just a 12-by-8 prison cell. The influencer who curated every detail of her life could no longer control the story. Now the world saw the unfiltered version, and it was horrifying. What drives a young woman with thousands of fans and a seemingly perfect life to commit cold-blooded murder? What flips the switch? For Mahek Bukhari, the answer lies in more than just fame. It lies in identity, control, and fear of irrelevance. Mahek was part of a new generation raised on screens. To them, the online world isn't separate from reality. It is reality. Followers become currency, likes become validation, virality becomes self-worth. Mahek wasn't just an influencer, she was addicted to being one. Her persona, confident, stylish, admired, was a carefully engineered fantasy. Every frame, every caption, every angle, designed for attention, for love, for applause. Influencers like Mahek often experience something called identity fusion. One criminal psychologist explained, they don't see a difference between their online image and their true self. When that image is threatened, it's not just uncomfortable, it's existential. When Saqib threatened to expose her mother, it didn't feel like a scandal. It felt like an erasure, a complete collapse of everything she had built. And Mahek didn't just react with panic, she responded with planning. Let's not forget, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment outburst. This was calculated, organized, coordinated across platforms and people. She recruited friends, chose a location, baited her victim, and ensured she wasn't alone. Every step of the crime mirrored the way she managed her influencer brand, strategically, relentlessly, with no room for flaws. Ansreen's motives, though different, were just as dangerous. Here was a 46-year-old woman, raised in a conservative culture, living in the quiet shadows of domestic life, suddenly swept into a world of followers and filtered fame. It was intoxicating. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was adored, admired, and she had a secret admirer, Saqib. The age gap didn't matter. The affair made her feel young again, alive, wanted. But secrets fester, especially when you try to hide them behind hashtags. When the affair spiraled into blackmail, Ansreen's fear became Mahek's rage. In her mind, this wasn't just about family shame. This was about power. Who controls the story? Who gets the final word? Who gets canceled? This was a crime born from ego, the prosecutor told the jury. They believed they could erase their mistake the same way they delete a bad post. But unlike social media, real life has no undo button. Mahek's narcissism, her need for attention, her unwillingness to accept consequence, it all combined into a chilling, dangerous mindset. She wasn't just protecting her brand, she was willing to kill for it. After a grueling 3-month trial, the verdict was in. Guilty. Mahek Bukhari, murder. Ansreen Bukhari, murder. Rikan Karwan, Rais Jamal, others. One by one, the court heard the words, life sentences, minimum terms stretching past 25, 30, even 31 years. You, Mahek Bukhari, were the principal orchestrator. This crime was as callous as it was calculated. You were utterly self-obsessed, driven by social media stardom and warped values. 2 young men are dead, and for what? A secret? A reputation? A TikTok career? The courtroom was still. Some cried, some stared in silence. Others wept for justice, however delayed it felt. Mahek didn't cry, not at first. But when the final numbers were read aloud, life imprisonment with no possibility of release before 31 years and 8 months, something broke in her. The influencer mask fell away. There were no filters, No music, no edits, just a young woman facing a lifetime in a cell. Answerin's sentence followed, 26 years and 9 months. A mother and daughter, once TikTok icons, now forever remembered as murderers. He was only 21. He had his whole life ahead of him. He died in fear, screaming for help. We will never forgive, but we needed this justice. The tragedy didn't just belong to one family. 2 lives were lost, 2 families devastated, a community in shock, and a country grappling with a new kind of crime, where digital fame bleeds into real-world death. Mahek's accounts have been wiped. Her brand deals vanished. Her videos, once viral, now circulate in documentaries and news clips, not as entertainment, but as evidence. 2 young men, burned alive, not in a war, not in a robbery, not even in a gang dispute, but because a mother had a secret and a daughter had a brand. Mahek Bukhari wanted to be known. She wanted followers. She wanted to be watched. Now, she is, but not for her beauty, not for her fashion, not for her reels. She is known as a killer, a cautionary tale. This case isn't just about murder. It's about what happens when online identity becomes more real than real life, when clout becomes currency, when shame becomes motive, and when a perfect image becomes more important than a human soul. Mahek built her life on fantasy, but she destroyed 2 lives in reality. His final words echo still, not because they're dramatic, but because they were true. The internet never forgets, but it rarely forgives. If this story moved you, if it chilled you, if it made you question the world we live in, don't let it end here. Leave a comment. What do you think drove Mahek and Answerin to this point? Share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth behind the facade. And if you want more real-life mysteries, more stories that peel back the digital mask, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're not here for fiction, we're here for truth. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more gripping true crime breakdowns, mysteries, and criminal psychology stories, only on Twisted Case.